Dear Venerable Sister and the brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to have another sermon along the same particular discourse known as Bodhiraja Kumara Sutta. May everyone settle down and give the consent with 3 times sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. So chassa duppanyo yavata kampanyavatam pattabbang tang na sampapuneyati ti. Dear Dhamma friends, we were basically dealing with the 5 limbs of striving along this particular sutta known as Bodhiraja Sutta, and that is the crux of the teaching in this particular discourse. Even though it is going through a number of episodes, the question arises, or question asked by Prince Bodhiraja from the Buddha is how long it will take for a desired candidates whenever he met up with a qualified teacher like Buddha to realize Dhamma. So instead of giving a direct answer, the Buddha is asking the particular Bodhiraja Sutta, the Prince the Bodhiraja, and since he is a master in taming elephants, so he is asking if a candidate comes and asking you to train him and make him a master on the taming elephants, how long will it take if he has no faith? And how long will it take if he is a sick person? And how long will it take if he has no energy? And the last thing, the 5th one, the Buddha is asking, if he is not intelligent enough, what is the situation? So then, at the end of this particular questionnaire, Prince Bodhiraja says, if one single of that 5 limbs is missing, that case is hopeless. Even the faith is not there, or the health is not there, or if he is not honest and not sincere and not enough energy or not enough wisdom, whatever it may be, if one is lacking, hopeless. The last in the list is the wisdom. So as I try to indicate yesterday also, these all 5 limbs are interrelated each other, starting from the faith to the wisdom. So I would like to bring the topic of wisdom to the end episode of the yesterday's talk, whereby whenever the energy becomes mobilized, when it becomes sustained energy, you learn the art how to keep the view with primary object, and you keep longer time face to face with the object, and not only that, you can see immediately, very closely, energetically, the depth of the primary object. So it is a kind of a reductionism. At the beginning, when you are met up with the primary object for the first time, it appears like a 1 unit. The breath as 1 unit, in breath, out breath as 1 unit, if you are to take an example. Or if you are taking the walking meditation, you can see the left leg movements is 1 unit and the right leg. So when you are keep on associating with that particular object, longer time you go there, together with this acquaintance, together with this closeness and proximity, you can see the breath itself is having the beginning phase, the middle phase and the end. And the step also, the lifting phase, moving phase and dropping phase. Likewise, more and more you go there, you find it is chain actions or differences between each and every tiny particles. At the beginning you don't see these falling apart or going to pieces. But later when you keep on practicing, you can't do away. You can't do away with observing these tiny, tiny particles. Everything is an agglomeration. There's nothing called unit. Luckily we had the one question also. When you keep on practicing, within the breath, you can see tiny, tiny particles. Within the body posture, when you are sitting and fully aware, fully mindful, and then you can see a lot of activities are happening. So wisdom here means, even though at the beginning, at the outset, you see this as a unit, and while keep on observing, it is evolving into tiny particles, it is evolving into reductionism, without giving up, without entertaining doubts. If you can maintain the trend, unbroken mindfulness, steadfast mindfulness, you can see the distance observation and the proximate observations can make completely two different sides. And when that such a thing happen, if you go prepared with this impermanent notion, you can see yes, same thing, appear like a one unit, and later it can be disentangled and different particles. And again the sum total of everything come back and represent as one unit. So likewise it is disintegration and reintegration, dismantling, thing can happen. So hardly any person can understand this metamorphosis, this evolution, this changing nature, and it is gives rise to different phases. So when it is happening from the wisdom point of view, each and every item on the earth have two facets at least. One is the totality and as one unit, and the other one is it's gone into little pieces, and when it's going into pieces it's different. So when and where you see an object, maybe in breath or out breath, maybe a glass or maybe a chair or maybe a bed or maybe an elephant, whatever may be, we as one unit, you can understand that particular unit behave in a completely specific way. Elephant's behavior is completely different from a cow. She-elephant's behavior is completely different from the bull elephant. So whenever it is you observe the unity or one entity or one being, that being completely stand for itself, stand out for itself. So it shows some individual characteristic, some intrinsic characteristic, some delimited characteristic. So wisdom first you focused and gain is we call individual characteristic. This is called natural characteristics. So in-breath has its own individual characteristic versus out-breath. In-breath, out-breath has its specific characteristic versus rising and falling. And completely different from the left leg and the right leg. You can see different, they are stand out. So they are called individual characteristics. But when and where the in-breath and out-breath observed very closely, it is nothing but stiffness, tension, movements and tiny activities. And when you go through the rising and falling also, even though it is at the beginning appear completely different from the in-breath and out-breath, once rising and falling observed very closely, it's also end up with the stiffness, tension, movements, tiny particles. So therefore, whatever the starting point, whatever the individual characteristics, when and where you go in reductionism, when and where it is going to the tiny particles, these tiny particles show some common characteristics. So wisdom is how to look at the thing with its own natural characteristics or specific characteristics or intrinsic characteristic, and when you are closely observe how that individual characteristic gives rise to the common characteristics. So this change It's hardly one can cope up with unless otherwise you have heard about that. You go prepared for that. One example given by Venerable Karukunda Jnanananda is when you see a white light through a prism or through a bubble of water, it can disperse into 6-7 colors: vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, like completely different. So when it is color separated, it's a rainbow. When it come back again to this totality, it's white light. So white lights, once color separated, very colorful, 7 rays. When everything come together, white. Likewise, the earth element, fire element, water element, and air element agglomerate in such a way, then it appear like elephant. It agglomerate in such a way and appear like a cow. But ultimately, when you reduce, nothing but everything is 4 elements. Like if you see cow, you can't see 4 elements. When you see elements, you can't see cow. That is what the Buddha says. Whenever she-cow is taken, you can say this cow. I cut into pieces and remove the skins and the sinews and the blood and the flesh and this thing, and when it is put in the beef stall, you never recognize it as a cow. You see, this is beef, this is bones, this is skin, this is kind of thing. So whenever you look at the beef, you don't get the feeling or notion of a cow. Whenever you look at the cow and see, you can feel the notion of beef. Likewise, the same thing can change into other thing. And the reciprocally it can happen. The wisdom here indicate you can see something in an agglomeration and attributable with the label and the name. When it's disentangled, it goes to the 4 elements or energies. When it's going there, you can't see the first label attributable to the individual separate particles. So when that change is taking place, if someone can cater for, understand this, distance look is appear like a unity, entity, a being. And it is close look appear like energies of 4 elements. So when this is happening, you must have the idea of changing nature or impermanent nature, notion, then you can understand. So that knowledge never arises in a conventional mind. Conventional mind is cow is a cow, never become beef. Beef will never become cow, cow will never become beef. So that is how the today different wars. They say this is my country, other person say no, it is my country. Then a war. So everything is due to the boundaries. The boundary, if you analyze it and see, is it a concept or it's a reality? So when we are observing the in-breath and out-breath very sharply and very noted and really adverted with the mind and kind of thing, you can see the in-breath and out-breath. It is not a sound, it is not a pain, it is not a thought. It's in-breath and out-breath. But you close observation, ultimately you can see the difference between in-breath and out-breath also disappearing, and ultimately you can see the stiffness, tension, movements. When such a thing happen, and still, if you can understanding the shape shifting and this changing and close observation and the distance observation, so much of changes. So this, the catering capacity we call the wisdom. But if you make a doubt out of that, or not ready to accept this changing nature, that's called the adamant nature. That is the conventional mind. So one must have this panyava hoti, the panya or the wisdom here in the lowest capacity. It says anything arising is disappearing. The udayatta gamini panya, anything arising is disappearing. So therefore, when and where the disappearance happen, the disappearance happened is nothing but on the boundaries. So that very thing, I will explain it this way. So now you suppose you are a meditator sitting and your primary object is in-breath and out-breath for an example. And when you observe in the in-breath and out-breath, you plunge into the same object, and within the object you find all the elementary characteristics and stiffness, tension, movements. And once you go into the in-breath in such an immediate way, in such a proximate way, you feel the energy field, and you are not distracted more with thoughts and sounds and pain. And they are, if you can observe the stiffness, tension, movements when it is happening, can you see me and not me boundary? You will get lost. That is the point. You don't feel in and out. You don't feel me and not me. Under such circumstances, if you are a person with egotistic ideas, you feel like a disaster. Because that you can't see the boundary, and you can't develop kind of a conceit. You can't develop any kind of a desirability. So if you are a wise person, you let loose. If you are an adamant person, you open eyes and try to see again the conventional in-breath and out-breath. You never let loose to understand this vibrations, stiffness, tension, movements. So what is actually losing is your boundary. Whenever the boundary lost, you can't attribute the same label. You can't attribute the same name. And that is something, it's devastating for a person with this stereotype and blinkers-like ideas. They can't accept it. So therefore, if you wish to see the end of suffering, you have to understand this suffering is basically due to the boundaries. Whenever you lose the boundaries, you are losing suffering. But you feel lost. So that lost feeling is what you call defilements. If you wish to understand the defilements, whenever let loose the boundaries, defilements are arising. You feel boring. You feel sleepy. You feel monotonous. You feel entertaining of doubts. You feel uncertainty. So when that happens, the opposite of wisdom is the doubt. So as far as, I will put it this way, if you are going to recognize this entertaining doubt is as a wisdom, it's incurable disease. This is what the education, the literal world today. They think entertaining doubt is a wisdom. They think it is inquiring mind. So then you are utterly lost. You are not experiencing something. Whatever arising then and there, you are analyzing it. Because this analysis is a threat to the truth, the direct truth. So whenever it is losing the boundary, if you can just wait, and it can see, it can go into pieces, but not falling apart. So going to pieces. For example, many people try to assimilate examples to communicate this idea. Imagine a beehive in a damp climate or humid. Then they come together and live in the hive, and you can see the shape. You can see the hive. Now imagine then there's a bright light and all the bees are gone for collecting honey. And where is the hive? No. The bees are separate. Is there a destruction or is it something damaged? No. Bees are separate, and when they come back again, it appears like a hive. When it's gone far apart, still the bees are there. Likewise, when the individual characteristics are there, agglomeration is there. When the integration happened or dismantling happened, for individual parts nothing happened. But they come to the different agglomerate, different configurations. So if you have no wisdom, you can't understand the things what you see going into pieces. And again, they can appear like one unit. So one author, I appreciate him, but many may not. the Ken Wilber, he has written a book on no boundary. And when I was in Nilambi in 70s, I used to read it. There was only one copy, we had the library. And he's explaining how the boundary and no boundary situation happen, where the wisdom proliferate if you understand the boundary is nothing but a concept. It is something you imposed. There is no boundaries in nature. Even no boundaries between the time and space. So if you are to think, time and space has to come. That means whatever you think is bullshit. Nothing useful. Whatever you experience is not thinking. So therefore let the experience to happen and see the shifting. The entity happens and ultimately disintegrate and the tiny particles happen. Each and every particle go into the tiny, more and more tiny particle. Ultimately, they don't represent the sum total unit, the sum total being. And disintegration. Pandita Sayadaw put it in this way. Whenever you go in the dusk or in the early morning, if you happen to see a line of ants, from a distance you may recognize it as a rope, or you may recognize it as a root, or you may recognize a wood. And you may consider it as go there. Instead, if you go closer, you can see it is not a dead particle, the movements are there. Then you feel like go closer, and then go very close and see there's no rope. Ant after ant it is going. And close look appear tiny particles. If you are at a distance, you find a dead rope or dead root. So that difference, if you are to cater for, you must have direct touch. That direct touch is always happening, but our mind so stereotype. One thing is because simple unknowing. Things can have two different facets, individual characteristic and the common characteristics. The second thing is misperception. We never ready to give up the notion we develop. We never ready to give up the boundary we have developed, because we have recognized with that boundary, with the notion, so we are always try to prove that what you have seen earlier is exactly now I am seeing. There cannot be any changes. That is because your permanent notion. So the when and where the energy aspect and the wisdom aspect come together, instead of entity or instead of unit, now you see a flux. Everything is disintegrated, and only energies are there without any boundary. And under this flux situation, if you are wise enough, you will understand the frustration cannot take stand. Frustration can't stay upon this flux. Frustration and the tension arises only when and where you have the permanent notion, you have the individual characteristics. And if you are ready to have individual characteristics as well, the common characteristics, you can see mind has two facets, at least two ways, holistic idea and disentangled idea. So when and where, if you understand two kinds of existence, is a shifting of the paradigm from the unity or entity to a being to four elements. That change is a kind of evolution taking place. Mind become very vigilant and very diligent and very immediate. For that, you must have the faith, you must have the healthy mind, you must not be dishonest and perverted, and you must have energy as well as the wisdom. When everything happens, your personality is going to change. Your likings and dislikings is going to change. So under such circumstances, it says, you only not see the difference or evolution of the object that you are observing, but the mind, very mind, observing also undergoing the change. It is called jnanancha, jnatancha, ubopi vipassati. The person observing itself is undergoing. The object observed also undergoing. So they become reciprocal each other, and you understand Dhamma is working, or it is happening in the momentum, and at that moment, without forking fingers, you have to let it go autopiloting and observe. There you can see what is happening is totality, not a partial one. So, if it is happening under your very nose then and there, and you see whenever it is agglomerated, suffering happens. Whenever it is agglomerated, labeling possible. Whenever it is agglomerated, the naming is possible. Frustration is possible. You can put into language. You can put into communication. But whenever it is disintegrated, you can't put into words. No frustration. No label is possible. No tension happen. So out of these two situations, our mind is always happy. This agglomerated situation, frustration, tension, and accepting this permanent notion, and that is what we call suffering. And instead, even you are meditator or not, there is a disintegrated form of the same, and if you are going to accept it, there you can't see male, femaleness, good and bad, correct and wrong, indiscipline or discipline. They are just mere energies. So when these two happens, this agglomerated part we call the conventional truth. The disintegrated or dismantled energies we call the absolute truth. So there is two kind of facets in each and every phenomena. So if you are biased to the agglomerated part, you will never see the energy or disentangled part. Whenever you go there, you can't think that they can come together and make an entity. So shifting from one to the other is aspect of the wisdom. So that wisdom is never you are born with. Never. It is not in the evolution. That has to come. The Buddha says for that kind of knowledge to happen, for that kind of wisdom to happen, for that kind of view to happen, you have to listen from enlightened Buddha or disciple. And second thing is you must have the radical reflection to understand this verbal message and put into the practice and see how much your interpretations are depend on the belief that you are starting with. So whenever it is evolution and you are ready to let it change, later you may understand kind of a wisdom arises. It is not the wisdom that you are born with. It is not the wisdom you are learned in the classrooms. This wisdom is ever radical. You must be radical in reflection. So when Jnananda is going to say, he is interpreting this Yoniso Manasikara as not the wise reflection, he prefer radical reflection. So therefore, same thing you have to look in from the different viewpoints, different angles. So that part you can't give to someone, you can't expect someone to be born with. So therefore, this is the kind of evolution going to, you have to expect depending on number of variables. Here it has reduced to 5 variables: the faith, your healthy body, and the healthy mind, and not the honest and straightforward mind, not cheating, and the energy and the wisdom. And when and where the Buddha is asking if the person is coming to you to learn about the training of the elephant, if it's not faith, it's a not healthy person, and is cheating kind of a person to himself as a master, no energy, no wisdom, each and every time the Prince Bodhiraja says, not only all the 5, even one that character is missing, it's a hopeless case. Then the Buddha says that particular person is having the faith And he also having enough physical health as well as true to type, and is honest and sincere, and has enough energy as well as it have the wisdom. Then how is the situation? Then he says, I need know all the 5. In one aspect is completed. I know how to use the faith into the health, how to represent, how to make use the faith to make him healthy. I can make him straightforward, I can make him energetic and wise. So whenever these 5 aspects come together, then I am ready to accept him as an apprentice, and I know easily I can train him. And likewise the Buddha says, the truth or this practice and our aim is bigger than the elephant. So appear like a very big thing you can't tame, but if you systematically apply with these all the 5 qualities, the Buddha says, some people, if I advise them for 7 years, the maximum I think, by having these all the 5 qualities, 7 years time he may achieve. That means at the beginning, even if you don't have the opening balance of so much of faith, but if you are ready to change, the master can make use it. And if you have enough health to practice in the consistent way, to the timetable, and if you are honest and straightforward, then master can train. If you are using this energy in a diligence way, then master can change. If you have wisdom, you may catch it. So then the Buddha says maximum 7. And just like in the Satipatthana Sutta, then the Buddha is reducing 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 1.5 months, 1 month, half, 1 week. So at the Satipatthana Sutta, stop at that level. He says, bare minimum or at least 7 days. But in the Bodhiraja Sutta, he says, if you are endowed with all these 5 characters, and if you have been instructed in the morning, evening you can be enlightened. This is going to give a still furtherance to this, because the sum total of these 5 factors is unimaginable. It is gathering the momentum in such a way, so therefore when it is happening, the time aspect become insignificant. So our Loku Amdru went to Jnanarama, extract from this and put into the monks' compendium of rules. He said these 5 aspects being highlighted by the Buddha to this Prince Bodhiraja, and therefore you must understand literal meaning of these 5. And then you must try to fulfill each and every aspect. It is not the duty of the society or the center or the master. You must fulfill it. That is the way you facilitate your desired goal, and you must have your common sense, and this is given by Buddha. It is your duty to always make the believing that is something, the verifiable kind of a faith. And you must keep the body as much as possible healthy, clean, internal and external. And you must never try to cheat your mind to your meditation experience as well as for the interpretation. And you are associating with the true friends and Dhamma friends, be very, very honest, be straightforward, and then your communication will be very straightened. And ever initial energy or launching energy and sustain energy and the fulfilling energy. Energy also evolving, so you must try to understand each and every time you are ready like a beginner or with the initial energy, when and where it is gathering the momentum, give the necessary facilitation, and it will go for the sustaining energy and the fulfilling energy. And this changeability itself is the wisdom. You must fit into the situation. Don't interpret terms. Instead, try to see how much I can fit into the situation. For example, when you are meditating, thoughts are coming. Definitely, uninstructed person will say, I have to stop thinking, then only I can start meditating. But instead, if you are a wise person, you will say, okay, while the thoughts are happening, how much I can be aware that I am sitting? How can I be aware that midst of thoughts still I am breathing? And how much I am avenued or face to face with sitting posture and the in-breath and out-breath. And likewise, completely get disappointed and get up and go, amidst of thinking, daydreaming and fantasizing, if you can see through, then you can get something, not the everything, but learning that art, amidst the sound, pain, everything. If you know, then you are learning ways and means. That is called appropriate technology. This appropriate technology is the what here, for the yogis level, is called Udayabbhagamini Panya. Any distraction, any hindrance arising, is arising to pass away. Why should we worry? Why should you make a charge sheets? Why should you make fabrication? Let it arise and go back and then get the opportunity whenever it is going, rather than keep on complaining. Likewise, when the wisdom happens, you will be like a Girl Guide or a Boy Scout. You know appropriate technology, you know impromptu situation. When you go to the forest, you have to make use the opportunity and improvise what is available. Don't expect all the luxuries and everything to happen, then you are the loser. So therefore, a meditator or a renunciated person or celibate life is full of adventurous. So therefore, if someone is complaining that my meditation is not successful, don't find reason outside. Whenever you find a reason outside, you are utter fool. You are with the egotistic idea. You have to understand all the 5 reasons given are internal. And if you can relate the difficulty and your own weakness, then it is your duty not to find a fault with the external. So then you find you are, even though you are not enlightened, you are contented. It is within you. That contentment is the foresight of the Nibbana. If someone is telling, no, I am waiting till the Buddha, the Metteyya to come, go to hell. You are finding outside. And if you say, I am waiting till all the thoughts are ceases to exist, I am waiting till all the pains are disappearing, I am waiting till all the sounds to go, I am waiting till the breath comes all the way in search of me. No. So today's world is full of that. They are not contented people. So therefore, before going to Nibbana, you feel the contentment. To make it little practical, it says, the troubles coming along our way is utterly bearable. Why should you make fabrication? Why should you make complaints? And more you try to bear it up with, then your immunity is increasing. Your ways and means increasing. And you are evolving. Otherwise you are dreaming. So when such a lucid, lucrative sermon given, the Bodhiraja was so happy because it's a kind of a dialogue, one-to-one relationship. And then his messenger was still waiting, and he says, now the prince, the Buddha has given such a very practical, pragmatic answer, but still you are not going and take refuge of the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha, and you are not appreciating. And then the Bodhiraja is telling, you don't know, when I was in the womb, my mother has taken refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Therefore I have nothing to do start. When my mother go to the temple as a pregnant woman, she used to say, Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi twice. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi twice. Tatyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Towards therefore, I have nothing to go in take refuge of the Buddha. I am born with that. So you have to understand. That means he is not only appreciating the literal or lucrative teaching, but he is dedicated. That is why where he put up this house, he thought the Buddha to come and inaugurate it and to have it. So therefore, his appreciation is from the tradition, from the lineage, is happening. So likewise, we also, if we consider as a residential meditation practitioners or full-time, we have to understand two retreatants are not equal. They differ. Because their likings and dislikings are different, their faith difference, their health situation is different, and their cheating nature, whether knowingly or unknowingly, it is different, and their energy levels are different, and their wisdom is different. So, starting from this multivariate situation, but when you have put forward the group effort, we can understand that the starting faith is increasing or evolving, and your health is increasing or evolving, and the communication, short to the point, short and sweet, increasing, and our energy, that is not the, trying more, now striving. You know where to hit, you hit it, not you are going here and there. And the wisdom also see the possibility to fit into the situation. So, when and where these 5 qualities happens, see, it's hardly difficult for someone to say for that you have to be a man or woman or the ordination or unordained or a big Buddhist or non-Buddhist, whether you learn all Tripitaka, whether you have all the monastic codes and all the kind of thing, all become null and void. So therefore, if you are believing, you have a certain amount of faith, you have a certain amount of health, you have a certain amount of honesty, and certain amount of energy, certain amount of wisdom. And that is enough. But if you look at it and say, no, my faith is not enough, that's enough. That is what you call the defilement. Not only that, you undermine others also with your defeated kind of bankrupt confidence. So therefore don't associate that kind of people. That's the biggest crime in our life. We are always associating disheartened people. It's a contagious. If you are living more with this kind of people, your whole spirit will be gone. But instead, if you are associating with the true people, or noble people, and even it's difficult to be with them because they are not hugging you, they are not kissing you. Therefore it says, God bless you, and the Satan will kiss you. So if you wish to kiss, you understand who is kissing you. Other people will not come and hug and kiss, it is blessing and at a distance. So therefore association with the true person, the noble person, you have to live up to that. So that we must be happy, we have dedicated time for that kind of thing, and measure how much you believe you, how much you believe your body knowledge, how much you believe that how lucky we to expose into this kind of a situation, and it is also slowly increasing. Whenever you see this advancement, the slow increase, never try to be smart to accelerate it. You are utterly destroying it. It is painfully slow. That you have to accept. But foster it, facilitate it, and don't disturb it. Ultimately, once the momentum gathered, it knows what to do. So therefore, if someone sees someone is striving with his utter failure, don't discourage. Even his lack of faith, even if he or she is with the poor health, even if she can't directly speak what they feel, and even if she is little lazy or unwise, no problem. While striving, you have no rights to undermine others always encourage, and that encouragement is to ultimately in return you get encouraged. So if you find that kind of a people, this is we call the good association, true people, noble people, and the formula indicates if you are not a true person, if you are not a noble person, you find others are also not true, others also not noble. More and more you become true to type, more and more you become noble, you see, you find outside also noble situation. So let the inner qualities to happen, and when and where it is happening, you are looking at the world and you will see world is more greener than what you have ever seen. It is not that world is greener, but your viewpoint is changing. So whenever you are full of loving kindness, the whole world is such. Whenever you are full of hatred, world is such. So therefore it says, what you see, that you are. Wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go with your foolishness. Or wherever you go with wisdom. So when that kind of a dynamic or the dialectic nature of the things are happening, that is what you call Dhamma. Dhamma is happening by its own accord. We are just witnessing. So therefore, don't worry, don't complain about the lack of results, but instead see which limb out of these 5 limbs of striving is missing, and you have to put a scrutiny and see, and to diagnose it more than the answer, that this diagnosis is the most important. So therefore, don't expect anyone to come and diagnose. Let you practice, be on the ball. When the success and failure happen, each and everything is a spark for you to understand the failure. And when and where you see, the observation, seeing, the mistake itself is the answer. So you will be a mirror to yourself and mirror to others also. So with that remark, I would like to sum up the today's talk. Hope Chandraratana Hamdru will give a summary and about the 5 limbs of striving, Panchapadhanayanga tomorrow. So I am going to take leave. Thank you very much for listening.